All right. All right. So, hey, it's Mike Jones, Jones Insurance here today. We're going to have a podcast. We're going to talk about annuities. I got Thomas joining me today. Thomas is our annuity expert, and we're going to get a little bit more educated about annuities, hopefully. We're going to talk primarily about three different types of annuities. So we've got fixed annuities, variable annuities, and indexed annuities. Fixed annuities provide a guaranteed interest rate for a specific period. The principal amount is protected from market fluctuations, offering a stable and predictable income stream during retirement years. Or it could be other time, but primarily retirement years. Variable annuities allow individuals to invest in various sub-accounts, which are typically mutual funds, and they offer the potential for higher returns. However, the income stream from variable annuities fluctuates based on the performance of the underlying investments. And then we have the indexed annuities, which is a combination of the fixed and variable. The return is tied to the performance of a specific market index, and they provide a potential for higher returns while protecting against market loss. And I want to give Thomas a chance to get in here and talk a little bit about it. Like I said, he's our annuity expert in the office.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. Well, like you said, I'm considered a specialist here mainly because I have my life license. So I'm able to help you guys get an annuity started, or if you're looking for a life insurance policy. I haven't written a annuity yet, but I'll be more than happy to walk through each step, break down the jargon with you guys, and I'll kind of want to speak to, just the opportunities you have available. I think that's more important than, not knowing, and understanding those things kind of creates that foundation. So here at our agency, we are able to write elite guarantee annuities, which offers savings for retirement as your primary goal, a stable investment option to grow your retirement savings, and then a tax deferred, once you make a single payment and let that guaranteed interest rate grow right on your money that you put into that account, as well as grow your earnings tax free. Of course, once you pull those funds, they will be taxed. That's one thing that is a major point that you should always look to. When you're putting in a certain amount of money, you want to know exactly how much you'll be able to take out when it comes to those taxable funds, and maybe even finding something that isn't taxed, right? And then next we have the platinum bonus annuity, right? So that speaks to the same thing, a primary goal of building your retirement fund, and then you also want a scheduled payment, okay, right? If you want to set that up, that allows you to move within your schedule and pay, on a set time versus a large amount all at once. Excuse me. That being said, lastly, we got the guaranteed income annuity, which, like the ones before, focus on retirement growth, and then works on giving you a steady income for the rest of your life. So it's kind of like a drip payment. Once you retire, you can pay yourself yearly the same salary or close to, not have to worry about where it's going to come from, right? And then it offers that flexibility where you can pay as you set up, or a fixed amount monthly, and allows you to build up that account versus a large sum all at once, which can be, kind of a challenge for most people, especially in today's economy. So that's kind of what I want to speak to. And I'll let Mike be the specialist here, let him get into a little bit more of those benefits here on the annuities.
Well, some of the benefits, so the guaranteed annuity offers a reliable source of income and provides that peace of mind during retirement and protecting against outliving your savings. So it'll continue to pay out for the life of the beneficiary. Tax advantages: annuities can offer tax deferred growth, allowing earnings to grow without immediate taxation until distributions are taken. And so we talked a little bit about the distribution when you're in retirement age. Generally, you're in a lower tax bracket, so that money will be taxed less, if taxed at all in certain circumstances. And then it diversifies retirement strategies. So annuities could be used to complement other retirement savings tools if you have them. So if you've got a pension plan maybe, or you've got a 401k, or you're looking to draw Social Security, or maybe you are drawing Social Security, and so this would help create a comprehensive retirement plan if that's what you're looking for, allow for extra income in retirement. We've mentioned before, or Thomas has brought up that Social Security is looking at being a payout through 2033, and currently not expected to be able to go beyond that without some type of a change.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more and kind of talk about, break that down and what that looks like as we approach that, because it is about 10 years out.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of people, they're looking to retire in 10 years and so on. Those who are just getting into the workforce, what does that mean for them? So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
And then, so like Social Security, so for some people that I know, that are in retirement or have been retired, my grandparents, parents, and other people that I know, the Social Security doesn't always kind of what they envisioned it would be. It doesn't pay as much as they were kind of hoping for in retirement, and that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily what we should count on, I guess, for retirement, especially if we want to maintain a lifestyle that you currently have, because that's one of the things that a lot of people look to do and figure out how they're going to supplement retirement with enough income to be able to maintain that lifestyle. If you like to go out to eat, you like to go to the movies, or you like to take vacations, you like to travel, whatever kind of stuff like that, or maintain the same house that you've been living in, because a lot of people downsize as they get older maybe and sell that investment or something like that and look for
the kids start to leave the home, and it's like, all right, what are we gonna do next? Like you mentioned, investments, keeping it in a family lineage and making sure that maybe you can keep a property or two. I know you mentioned something like that, having property, and that could be a part of your retirement portfolio, allows you to maintain what you have, even if you do decide to downsize at some point. So,
Well, I mean, a lot of people, they'll downsize once the kids move out, but that's investment. So a house for a lot of people is one of their biggest investments. And so once they sell that, get a smaller home maybe, if that's the plan, then generally they have some income, and it could be, that one big payment to an annuity to be able to stretch out that income for a lifetime kind of deal. And so they use the equity that was in the house to be able to fund an annuity that will generate income for the rest of their lives, so
something that simple. So
opportunity
and everything. And I know like diversifying is very important, kind of what we talked about. You mentioned that, right? We spoke about that. So just knowing what options are out there. I know we talked about IRAs and Roth IRAs and 401ks. I don't know if you want to break those down, kind of like give like an idea of what you kind of have and like some advice, maybe just a little understanding of what you may think is best or things that you've done, so that people can understand.
So I'm not currently a financial advisor. I did have my Series 7 and 63 license at one time, which allowed me to be a financial advisor for a period of time. And I may pick them back up again at some point in time in the future, but right now I don't have them. But being able to speak on some of especially the insurance and annuities and just different things, options that we have, of course I'm still able to do. But so Thomas had asked me before, like what option or what things do I have as far as retirement goes, and so I'm a military person and kind of in the process of transitioning out. But we have something similar to a 401k. It's called the Thrift Savings Plan, TSP. So I've contributed to that pretty heavily over the years, and it's done pretty good for me. I didn't get the benefit of any matching or anything like that, which they do now. They actually do a good job at matching now, but my time in was before that. Now I had a 401k at a place that I worked before, but I moved that after I left into an IRA, and I continue to contribute to an IRA. I've got a traditional IRA and I have a Roth IRA. So a traditional IRA is what you contribute to. It comes out of your income, and you never see it basically. So it automatically comes out.
We were talking about that last week, automatic savings.
Yeah.
Things that can help us, that we don't have to
Think
keep
about
an eye on.
it, just kind of continues that way.
Yeah.
And so with that, just automatically coming out kind of deal.
Non-tax, right?
It's non-tax, so it lowers your tax basis, and could, depending on where you're at, that's what you have to look at. You know, it could, if you contribute enough, it could get you into a lower tax bracket sometimes, so that you're taxed less.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, when you get into retirement and you start drawing that money out, you're at a lower tax basis anyway, so that's less tax on it to begin with.
And do they tax you where you, I guess, when you were making a working salary, or do they tax you on the funds?
When you withdraw it,
Yeah,
so they'll tax you on whatever your income basis is at the time.
at the time, and then
At that time.
they'll deduct it from that fund, basically. Gotcha.
Yeah, which should be, or is generally lower for people in retirement age than when they're actually working. Generally, you got the ability to earn more money at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I've got those, but I've got a traditional and a Roth IRA. The Roth is where I've already paid taxes on it, and so once I contribute it to the Roth IRA, anything that I draw out in the future would not be taxed. So there's different reasons why you would do different things like that. You know, what do you want to do as far as tax planning and things like that. We talked about other investments that I have. Rental properties, commercial properties, that kind of things. Me and my wife own a couple different businesses and that kind of thing. So we've tried to diversify a little bit and kind of plan for the future.
Portfolio mindset, right? You want to have your hand in a few different things, which is great. I don't know why people say being a jack of all trades is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect, right? Because you have an opportunity to maximize in any field if you have more on the table, right? But do it strategically. Don't just be willy-nilly.
Yeah.
But I mean, prime example, there's opportunity to grow your retirement as well as, you know, I guess your income overall currently, right? You don't have to worry about the retirements, but always worry about those taxes, because they will get you. Pay your taxes. And I think we got one more benefit left.
So the benefit of estate planning, annuities can be structured to provide income for beneficiaries after the annuity's passing. So like in our case, like if I'm the annuitant and my wife's a beneficiary, so I could structure it to where even after I pass, my wife could continue to get paid the annuity. And
Important. It's important.
you know, we've got something like that structured for my wife to, provided that I would be the first one to pass.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something too about your grandchildren having an account.
Yeah, so you can, you can set up accounts in your kids or your grandkids' names and stuff like that to.
And what account are you like speaking to? Is that an IRA? Is that what is
Yeah,
that?
you can do IRAs, you can do savings accounts, different stuff like that. Start planning for their future, their retirement. You can get annuities and things like that in their name, any of that kind of stuff to structure for their savings in the future and plan for, you know, weddings or, I mean, if you do the retirement, like like you do the IRA or stuff like that, that's gonna be more structured for retirement. Cause let's say they wanted to go to college with that or do the wedding or something like that, there's a hefty penalty if you pull out of retirement. Then there's generally like a 20% tax on it to where you'll lose that off the.
I think we spoke to that, or we mentioned it in an earlier podcast about those fees when you pull out a little bit earlier than the retirement age.
There's some other, you know, if you want to help kids save for retirement or the grandkids save for retirement, there's different plans out there that will allow you to do that kind of stuff. And so you want to look at that kind of stuff, but one of the things, and I'm not sure that the market has maintained I know it hasn't in the recent years and stuff like that.
I
But
did.
what we used to put out was if you put $1,000 away for your kid
Yeah.
or your grandkid, like in their first 8 to 10 years,
Mhm.
and didn't do anything after that, the way the market was performing for the 20 years prior to that, until the collapse back in 18 and stuff like that. But prior to that, they would retire with over $1 million in their retirement account and
Really?
stuff like that.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But that's saving early, and you're getting compound interest, so that's just interest on top of the money plus on top of interest. And compounded interest is a very, very strong financial tool when you start looking at long-term growth.
Yeah, you gotta have patience, right? Because you don't want to pull out early. You don't want to have to pay those hefty taxes and fees, because they do pile up, especially if you have a large sum of money that's coming out of those accounts.
Yep.
So, and I know we want to talk about some misconceptions, and I don't know if you want to break those down for the population out
We
there
can,
listening.
we'll talk a little bit about them. So, some of the misconceptions that are out there are that all annuities are the same.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the more significant misconceptions is that they're all the exact same, which in reality, we talked a little bit about the differences, but we talked about the fixed, the variable, and the index annuities, and each have their own distinct benefits and features to them. So, depending on what you're trying to do, we can help you to be able to structure it for what meets your intent. Annuities are only for retirees. Another misconception. Although it's commonly used for retirement, it doesn't have to be. Can be a valuable tool for individuals in different life stages and for what their plan is. Annuities are not tax efficient is another misconception. While annuities offer tax deferred growth, withdrawals may be subject to income tax like we talked about, hopefully at a lower rate at that time once you're drawing it during retirement. And that can be crucial in understanding how the taxes get paid out and stuff like that. And then annuities are complex and confusing is another misconception. Hopefully we've kind of broke them down a little bit to where they're a little bit easier to understand. And like Thomas said, if you give us a call, we can break them down a little bit more as we're going through them and figuring out what works best for you and what your long-term plan is. But not overly complicated.
Yeah. And we want to move away from those things that are complex and not to be scared or to be, timid of them. We want to move away and understand them, right? So knowing them and getting more familiar with what those terminologies are, maybe just getting in the door, right? Getting a quote, understanding what it looks like for you. That kind of alleviates any stress or any concerns that, anxiety of like, okay, I got to worry about retirement now on top of everything else that's going on. It's not that complicated, right? It's not that complex. It can be confusing, but that's why you have an agent to work through those things that are confusing. Not your enemy, but we're here to help. That's what we're geared towards. So just want to.
And then, another thing that we kind of talked about was that, the annuity is a contract, and so you're guaranteed or you can be guaranteed a certain return if you want the fixed, or if you do that, index, you can have a fixed plus a variable in there, and
best of both worlds.
yeah, that's the best of both worlds. So hey, if you go, I want to have a certain amount that I'm guaranteed, but a little bit could be fluctuate over here. I might could get a little bit more, or at least I wouldn't drop below this amount. And so that's good. And because the other option is to only have, or in some people's case, the only other option might be to have Social Security. And we've already kind of spoke about, the problems there. And I think that's kind of our next topic is to talk a little bit more about Social Security. Maybe
I'm glad you brought that to the forefront, because Social Security is failing. I mean, without a doubt. And I know we spoke a little bit about what they may do to alleviate that failure. But I mean, we're gonna talk a little bit more about what that looks like in the next 10 years, because it is projected 2033 is the year that program will lose funding or completely dissolve.
And that year has actually changed from last year. Last year, it was supposed to have been
Later.
2034 or something
Right.
like that, 2034, 35,
And-
somewhere in there. But
Yeah.
now they backed it up to 2033. But we've talked about it before. You know, I'm not sure that they'll let Social Security completely go away. You know, it's going to be, how do they fund it? Is there something else in the budget that they have to spend less on, or will there be an additional tax or some other kind of tax or something like
Yeah.
that? And you and I have talked before that there was somewhat of a plan that came out years ago,
Yeah.
probably 20-30.
It was like an
40 years ago.
80-20 plan where.
Yeah, and I
80%
can't remember the exact percentage, but
Yeah.
80-20 kind of sounds right. But so like what you contributed, guaranteed would be the 80%. That's your money, and you control it.
Right.
And you might even have, there was some talk about having the ability to be able to invest it in other types of security. So you would either look at, you know, being able to invest in indexes, or maybe being able to invest in mutual funds or stocks. I don't know if they would have gotten down into individual stocks, but it could have been possible.
We did an index.
Could have just done the index, something like that. But like I say, that never has materialized. The concern at that point in time were the generation that was about to go into retirement, or that were already drawing Social Security or about to start drawing Social Security. And there was a lot of concern from that group that, hey, we're not going to get our share, somehow we'll get cut out of this. But the way it would work would be like somebody like me, right? So I've paid into Social Security for the last 30, 40 years. If something happens to me in the next 10 or 15 before I would start drawing Social Security, then basically I paid into it and nothing, you know, that money's just gone. But the plan was that, hey, you would control that money. I could help decide what it's invested into, and then if there's money left in that account after I pass away, then I could will it to my kids, my spouse, my grandkids, whatever, something like that. So that money technically belonged, or at least a percentage.
Yeah.
And whatever that percentage was, whether it was 80-20, 60-40, the other money that would be decided would be that the cost to administrate it. So, you know, people have to work for the government, so people that oversaw Social Security, what do their salaries cost? What does it cost approximately, at least, for the people that, you know, somebody born with handicap or something like that, a lot of times they'll get Social Security.
Yeah, they're like SSI.
SSI, and they've never paid into the system.
Right.
So therefore, but they would be able to pull from it. So that's why you wouldn't control 100% of the money that you contributed to Social Security, because there's other things that pull away from it.
Yeah.
But at least you would know, hey, this is my money. I control this. I can invest it, and I can will it later on if you know, if something happens to me and there's money still in the account.
It reminds me of like the school vouchers and each student having their own voucher and being able to move that and take that money.
Similar,
each public funding student or public funded student, take that to another school, and you know, having that option, right? You know, being able to move your funds in the way you see fit. That's a big important thing, and I think that's what a lot of people miss out with when it comes to taxes. Like, you're automatically taxed when it comes to your income, and there was something I saw where it was like people would be a little bit more reluctant about taxes if they seen that, oh, before it was taken out, how much you made in overall like gross versus taxes and everything. People would be a little bit more, I'm gonna stand up and make sure my taxes are being taken out in the correct way, spent correctly. And then that too, like, how are we in 2023 and we don't have a program where we can kind of delegate where those funds go?
Yeah.
Because I know we spoke earlier and it was like, oh, we don't know if they're taking those funds from, Social Security and putting them into another tax, I guess, provided program, right? Those things are important. Like, you should be able to see where it's going.
Yep.
I don't think we'll ever go there, but we should.
Yeah.
I think it's important. Right?
Yeah, it's key to have some oversight as to where the money's going and that kind of stuff.
Because we wouldn't see failures. Because I think it would be more of a community thing where people know what's going on. And I think community meetings would be centered around, all right, what we're going to do with our next batch of Social Security funding that's going out, right?
Yeah.
That would be a bigger discussion in the community versus at a federal level or state level. I don't know if you want to talk to some of the points that we have here around the research we have coming from Bloomberg, I believe.
Yeah, so with it being that the Social Security system could falter earlier, the increase is due mainly to roughly 3% downward revision of the gross domestic product, or GDP, and labor productivity over the projected window. And so also Medicare, the Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, which pays for Part A of inpatient hospital care.
Very important.
Yep, and then their benefits are looking at 2031, which is has dropped from, it was also at 2034, 2035, and it's dropped back to where there's only money there to pay it until 2031.
Right.
So that the hospitalization could fall prior to the overall Social Security piece. And at that point, if the funds become depleted and continuing program income will be sufficient to pay 89% of the total scheduled benefits. That's a report that came out about Medicare and Social Security trust from the trustees and stuff like that. So those are not great numbers for us right now.
Not at all. And I know, speaking to us, it's like you are in a different age group than I would be, and the people you may be around, and it's just like everyone's at a different point in that retirement phase. I may not care as much now, but it's like it should be important to my generation that the things that we've been paying into since 16, 15, some people even a little younger doing newspaper routes, stuff like that, they're going to be, kind of out on the curb with nothing in their hands and nothing of value when it comes to retirement, unless they get into annuities, IRAs, 401ks, and do it early, so you actually can see that compound interest.
The key is the compound interest. So the sooner you can start adding money, and that's the sad thing. I mean, I can remember when I first started contributing to, retirement planning and stuff like that, it seemed like, this account's never growing. And then, I don't know, it just hit a point at some point in time to where it had actually been growing. It just didn't appear to be.
Right.
And
you
then
got to get that foundation going.
Yeah, as the number gets a little larger, because depending on what you're contributing and what kind of interest it's earning. I mean, a lot of times you look for it to double every 4 to 5 years, and it's a when it doubles from 10 to 20,000, it doesn't look like much, but when you get to 100,000 and it doubles in a few years to 200,000, then you're like, oh, that's the growth that you're looking. But you got to start that base,
right?
Start to get somewhere. To there,
Start somewhere.
To before it takes off and it looks a lot better, right?
Hey,
how are you? Come join us.
Yeah, you want to sit right here?
Come on, we're talking. We're gonna talk.
Well, I'm doing insurance.
Okay.
You want to do an annuity?
Yeah.
Talk about annuity.
No.
We'll help you with that later.
Mike got you. You want to take a break?
Finish it up. What else we got here?
Well, we're going to talk about the U.S. sovereign credit rating, degrading.
You want to talk on that one?
Yeah, I could talk
Okay.
about that.
All right, you go ahead and hit that one, and we'll wrap it up.
All right, I'll wait for her to step out, and then we get back to it.
You don't think Amanda can be quiet over there? That's what she said. See,
That's
she's
not what
kinda
I'm
loud.
saying.
That's Thomas. I don't
But her
know.
flip flops, even when she's sitting down, they make it.
Tap, 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 tap.
Yeah. So yeah, we're talking about the credit rating downgrade by Fitch, right? One of those important rating systems, and I think a lot of nations utilize Fitch. U.S. being one of them, one of the largest GDPs in the world. I think the largest GDP nations
By
in
a
the world.
significant amount. The U.S. is the largest GDP in the world.
And
With China's about halfway to where we are, and then everybody else is just kind of way down below.
yeah, I mean, that being said, I mean, to see a downgrade in one of the largest nations, right, in the world. I mean, the U.S. has been, one of those gatekeepers for my whole life. As long as I've known, I'm sure you can relate and speak to that. But
Yeah, all of my life too. When we started the Fed system, it was sometime after World War II,
Yeah.
and the monetary system that we're currently under has been around for quite some time, and of
this
course,
is you're talking about the fiat, or you're talking about the gold back? Because now we have transitioned throughout those times where
yeah. So the monetary fund, when they first started it, was being able to loan money to individuals and then to other countries and stuff like that, and things like. And a lot of that was kind of after the rebuilding of World War II and that kind of thing. And the United States kind of led the way in a lot of that. And that's kind of what separated the United States away from other countries for the last 50 years or whatever.
the
60
world
years.
currency sets you up for a lot of gain, a lot of potential and growth. And I think seeing now today, you see, Russia, forgiving tens of billions of dollars worth of debt to South Africa. You see Biden trying to forgive student loan debt, and it just makes you wonder who's footing the bill at that point, right? And I am a student or a past student who, I've accrued a lot of debt. not as much as those, Ivy Leagues and, top scholars, but enough to say, all right, I have to, prepare and plan for what's to come as I get into the workforce. And then now seeing that the dollar is depleted or is depleting, I think a bigger question is like, all right, where do we go when we see our credit being downgraded to a AA versus a AAA, and it's like, all right, now you have to see that dollar crumble. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, any concerns.
Thank you for calling Jones Insurance Agency. This is
We
Beth.
got
How may I help you?
I know.
Nations, when you're talking about things like
economies,
economies, yeah, building economies, building.
not just businesses. We're talking about nations who are looking to build.
But it's very similar to building a business, building a nation,
it
kind of
is.
stuff like that, and infrastructure and things like that.
That's why you can see a lot of business transfer into the politics of the world.
Yep. But at the same token, when they do that, they got to meet certain standards in order to for the United States to help back them. China's growth in the last several years has, like we talked about, their GDP is growing rapidly. It's the fastest growing GDP that's out there. Although here recently, I think they've started to struggle a little bit. So things may come down a little bit for them. We'll see how that
I've seen they're
continues to
supposed to
progress.
regress a bit.
Yeah.
At least more than what they projected.
More than what they had projected. So we'll see how that continues to go forward. But what they have done, since they have had some significant growth the last several years, is they have loaned to some of those countries that the United States wouldn't. And primarily the way they have done that is through building ports. And so they've built ports to be able to bring goods into these countries to help grow their economy. But in the same token, they've technically made the majority of those loans in a manner in which those countries would not be able to pay those loans back. They've structured them in a way that they wouldn't be able to pay them back.
Right.
So now they
Set them up for
basically foreclose on those ports, and then now they own them for either transporting of goods, or if the United States and China ever come to war, it's a place for them to be able to refuel and refit their shipping and warships and things
Right.
like that too, so.
So setting themselves up for success, those other people, those other nations not so fortunate in that dealing. I mean, you see the same thing happening with the US when it comes to the loans they put out as well. When it comes to student loans, for example, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a prime example. I have loans, but what do they tell us? They tell us that this is the way to, you know, riches and wealth and success is through college. You gotta get the degree. That's kind of the battle we deal with. It's the same
Yeah.
thing. It's a different scale.
Well,
but
I would say that the messaging out there for a long time has been, I don't know, it's depends on who you listen to. So there's some degrees out there that I would tell you that for a long period of time, it's been like, what do you plan to do with that degree when you actually get the degree?
yeah,
And there's some of those degrees that's never transferred into.
you could say it like a
employment.
liberal arts.
Well, there's
No.
just different degrees out there
Yeah.
where it's never really, you know, maybe,
Right.
you know, at some point in time, maybe, I don't know, maybe a teaching, instructing position. I don't know. Some of them don't just equate to an immediate job, and
A little
You
bit
know, I
time,
think-
a little
I
bit more
think,
time in the market.
I
You gotta
think-
shop around.
yeah, definitely. And I think, or you know, the bachelor's degree is not going to get you there. You got to at least get a master's degree, and then that's
Some
more debt.
schooling. Yeah.
And there's still, in some of those degrees, there's not a great likelihood of employment,
Mhm.
you know. And I think one of the things that for a long period of time we've overlooked, and I think, you know, at least from what I hear, there's more talk about it, is the technical schools and stuff like that. Generally, there's less debt coming out of those.
You talking
learn
about
a
like
trade,
trade schools,
stuff like that, things like that. You're
Yeah,
generally
absolutely.
making money while you're attending school, because
Right.
they're teaching you a trade. You're working. You're maybe even doing some type of an apprenticeship
Mhm.
with somebody that's already working in that field. You're earning an income, and it may not be as much as you will earn
Right.
Um,
Because you're an apprentice. You gotta
because you're an apprentice.
There's an
and you gotta
entry.
learn it.
entry like stop right there. You gotta get in the door, then you gotta work your way up the steps.
Yep.
You know, so that's just what it is, and that's in any industry. You know, entry level, and then you're talking about senior suite. Those are two different levels. You're not gonna go in making 100,000 in any job. You know, especially when you're new off the block, you have no experience. Fresh out of
I
college.
think, you know, to me right now, that's sometimes that misconception is that, you know, people come straight out of a college or wherever they're coming from, could be high school, could be college, could be whatever. And the expectation is that, hey, I'm gonna make as much as the CEO, like right off the bat.
Never.
But that's,
Not at all. Not close.
I think you know, it takes a little while for that realization to sink in, and then maybe a little bit of job hopping and stuff like that to try and figure some of that out.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I don't think it's ever been that way, and I don't know if it's ever gonna be that way. And there are those, few and far between people that start a company in their basement or their garage, and, you know, it's a multi-billion-dollar company within a couple of years.
Equity, like we mentioned earlier, having those people that can actually invest their time for that outcome. When it comes to like a corporation, people have interest with stocks versus actual payouts. So them owning that stock and it growing over time, that compound interest developing through a stock type of platform allows them to get the biggest payout, right? Because you're paying pennies on a dollar for something that could be worth billions, you know. A great example was Apple, Steve Jobs, and you know, one of those garage companies that turned into $1 trillion, you know, equity. Yeah.
Microsoft, Bill Gates, you know,
Yeah.
same kind of guy, same type of thing. Yeah, but it hit into industry at just the right time. You know, I was, I saw something the other day. It was talking about how many households actually had internet connections in the first few years of the internet, right?
Yeah.
So you're looking at dozens to hundreds maybe, and then now you're into the multi-millions, you know. It's hard to find a household probably that doesn't have some type of connection to the internet, or at least being able to gain access fairly easy nowadays. So that was a revolutionary type of industry, the cell phone, revolutionary type of industry kind of deal. So a lot of things out there that have changed our world, and a lot of those grew very fast, very quick, and made those companies a lot of money very fast. And you know, there'll be some other type of technology change here in the next 10, 15 years, probably that'll change a
You
lot.
think
of
it'll be in
again.
America? You think it'll be the US that can capitalize on it and maybe turn this into something that is gonna, I guess, get us that upgrade back to AAA, you know,
Maybe.
or even save our economy? Because I think we're at a point where we're lacking production overall as a country. We don't produce enough.
Yeah.
We import more than we export these days.
Yeah.
That's causing us to lose such value in the market space that is this world, right? We have to present something that is, you know, I guess, advantageous to the world. We haven't done that, and it was with oil a few years ago. Whatever you want to say, but
Well,
we were in a
we
good
could
place.
probably, you know, and that's an administration type thing,
Yeah.
right? So it depends on the what administration is at the federal level
Mhm.
as to whether how difficult or how easy they make it to be able to pump oil
Mhm.
out of the United States, and what kind of restrictions we put on the number of barrels that can be produced in a day, and that type of stuff. You know, we've got that
Yeah. Well, my biggest thing,
capability here in the United States, but
we do.
Um,
We do. Well, my biggest thing is too being able to produce and export, because I feel like as a business, you're doing everything you can to avoid paying taxes regardless. So you're not making your money off the taxes from those big, I guess, accounts, quote unquote,
Yeah.
for the government.
well,
But-
we did more trading type things, you know,
Yeah.
probably back in the 90s, I guess, and then it's continued on until today. But
Yeah,
you know,
but
when
where is
NAFTA
it now?
came
though?
out, when NAFTA came out, you know, and we
Yeah.
took most of our, so like here in the South, at one
Yeah.
time I worked at a textile plant for a period of time, and so like textiles were, you know, we made gauze at the plant that I worked at, and I know a lot of other places that made shirts, you know, clothing lines, stuff like that, and most of that after NAFTA moved to
Mexico.
South America, Mexico, those types of places, to be able to make those products at a cheaper, you know, and then most of those companies moved there because that was what made them more money as far as a
Right.
business. Could the United States bring a lot of that back?
Mhm.
Absolutely. But it's gonna be regulations and how
Tax
much the
breaks.
taxes are for companies to be able to stand up. I mean, we see the same type of thing that go on when we talk countries. We see the same types of things when we talk states.
Mm.
Right, so states compete for businesses
Yeah.
to come to those states.
It's a business
And-
bid or something like that.
And so and it's normally like, you know, state leaders, chambers of commerces, and just different stuff like that. They go and meet with these companies and go, hey, if you move to here in this city,
Mhm.
you know, these are the benefits of there. You know, this is some taxation type stuff. This is other industry that's there. And a lot of those companies, when they come, they wanna know what kind of quality of life their employees are gonna have and things like that within that city or close by.
And that's how you see I can't remember what borough it was in New York, but I know there was one that was bidding for Amazon to build a factory, and I think they ended up going with Jersey or something like that, or Newark, something in that proximity. But they were able to, I guess, push themselves out of the bid because they automatically lost when it came to those things, like what's the quality of the workers, and then people were fighting for higher wages, and they just felt like, oh, they're getting such a kickback when it comes to those taxes that it just didn't make sense for them to build there. So then you see politicians advocating for them not to, or advocating for them to stand up and actually do what's right towards their employees. I don't know. Are you looking that up right now?
No, I was looking up something else.
Oh, gotcha.
But just kind of in that same I was trying to remember this guy's name. And so when you talk taxes and stuff like that, right? There was a guy in New Jersey years ago who owned or ran a hedge fund, right? Mr. Tepper, I think it is, and he moved. He went and spoke at the to the New Jersey legislators and told them like, hey, if there was a tax increase or something like that, and he told them if you go through with this tax increase, he was going to move. And you know, I don't know if they really understood who he was or anything like that, but he contributed. I'm trying to find it here. He contributed a significant amount of their income or their taxes without really knowing it. And then he moved to Florida where there was no personal income tax, or is none, and saved him millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, and cost them.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds like something New York would do.
Well, this was Jersey, but
Jersey. Same ballpark.
I think they may have struck a deal with him later, and he ended up moving back. But I think they ended up having to strike a deal with him to make that happen.
Just to get back to, you know, kind of what we're talking about, that credit rating downgrade and like kind of what it looks like. So we see a high debt burden is expected to worsen, right? So we have some of the highest debts currently in our area in the U.S. and is expected to worsen, especially with, I guess, production and whatnot slowing down, the workforce kind of shrinking in a bit here and there, some segments more than others. So the ratio of debt to grow domestic GDP, so we're looking at an increase sharply following the last two major crises, the 2008 financial crisis and the 2020 COVID pandemic. While the ratios has improved from nearly 135% to around 118, we are still borrowing more than we are producing as a nation. And that kind of touches on what we just got into. And then the last point I want to leave you guys with, the cost of servicing that debt has risen due to the Fed's aggressive rate hikes. So we're seeing rate hikes. They did do a pause last month, I believe.
I think they're expected to maybe raise it again.
Yeah.
They're coming up.
Yeah, they just raised it. So people, I don't know if people know or they're following that. They did just raise it, and they're looking to keep raising it until they reach their goal, which I don't specifically know at this time, but I know currently we're looking at aggressive rate hikes. The cost of servicing the U.S. debt has increased by 25% in the last 9 months. Okay, the last 9 months, 25% increase through June. Over the next 30 years, the interest cost will total nearly $70 trillion. And we're currently at what, 34 roughly national debt? Yeah, $34 trillion currently. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of where we're at, you know, as a nation, as our debt kind of starts to compound on itself. Investment might be the way to go. So.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the earlier the better.
Yeah. I mean,
Take advantage of that compounded interest.
if you want to have a family, grow a family, you want to start a business, you know, be strategical, be precise, be direct. But
We would ask that you continue to share and like and leave us a review. Let us know what you think about it. Share it with your friends and just let us know if there's something else that you would like to hear, a topic that you would like to hear us talk about or something like that.
yes, please, the more the merrier.
Yep, without a doubt. We'll be glad to talk about it. Maybe discuss a little bit. primarily insurance, but we're willing to talk about other things too. Thomas likes to talk about the current events and
please. This is the
the
life we're living.
topics and stuff out there
Yes.
that deal with the financial world or political world or some of that kind of stuff. So
It's important.
thanks again for taking an opportunity and listening to us though, and we'll see you next time.